Welcome to Dark Knight Films Reviews and another Versus Night. Tonight I will be comparing Blood of Dracula, released in 1957, versus Blood of the Vampire, released in 1958. So, let's get started on this one with the leads. Blood of Dracula stars Sandra Harrison and Louise Lewis. Blood of the Vampire stars Donald Wolfett and Barbara Shelley. Now, the leads in Blood of Dracula are not bad. Sandra Harrison is pretty good in her role as Nancy. But Louise Lewis is pretty annoying as the feminist chemistry teacher who really wants to turn Nancy into this monster just because of girl power. Blood of the Vampires cast. Donald Wolfett is over the top as the scientist who's a wannabe vampire in this film. But Barbara Shelley, as usual, is pretty damn good. But as over the top as Donald Wolfett is as his character, I think the combination of him and Barbara Shelley really is a lot better than Sandra Harrison and Louise Lewis. So I'm going to go with Blood of the Vampire on this one. All right, so let's move on to supporting. See if we can get a different outcome there. Supporting cast on Blood of Dracula consists of Gail Ganley, Mary Adams, Edna Holland, Malcolm Atterbury, and Richard Devon. The supporting cast on Blood of the Vampire consists of Vincent Ball, Victor Mattern, William Devlin, Andrew Faulds, and Brian Coleman. Now, a lot of the work on the supporting in Blood of Dracula is very similar to the supporting cast work and acting on films like I Was a Teenage Werewolf, I Was a Teenage Frankenstein, and How to Make a Monster. Right down to even having Malcolm Atterbury playing this police lieutenant character in here. And, you know, he was featured in both I Was a Teenage Werewolf and How to Make a Monster. So I guess he really liked playing in these cheap horror films that were done here. But the supporting on Blood of the Vampire is much more similar to what you would find in Hammer. So it's much more refined acting, and it's really kind of hard to compare it to the cheap, acting in Blood of Dracula. So, yeah, this one I'm going to give to Blood of the Vampire as well. All right, so let's move on to the story and see if we can get a different outcome there. Blood of Dracula consists of a chemistry teacher who hypnotizes her newest student, awakening a vampiric creature from within her. The story for Blood of the Vampire consists of a scientist who uses inmates at a prison for the criminally insane for blood experiments and transfusions to keep him alive. As much as I don't really care for Louise Lewis's chemistry teacher character in here, I like the fact that Blood of Dracula's story is basically kind of a female version of I Was a Teenage Werewolf. And like I said, I like Sandra Harrison in her performance as Nancy in there. However, her transformation sequences don't make too much sense. This is called Blood of Dracula, which, yeah, it is a misleading title because Dracula does not feature in this film at all. But it makes a little bit more sense than a film like Brides of Dracula, where Dracula didn't appear in that either, and they weren't his brides, Whereas there is this pendant that Louis Lewis's character uses that is supposed to have Dracula's blood in it. So it does make a little bit more sense, the title, even though Dracula isn't really in it. It is his blood in that pendant. And she uses that pendant to hypnotize Sandra and put her under her control. And it opens up this, much like the werewolf in I Was a Teenage Werewolf with Michael Landon, except she turns into almost like a werewolf creature herself. It's not so much a vampire creature that she turns into. She looks more like a female version of Michael Landon's, werewolf, as opposed to an actual vampire. I guess they wanted her to be monstrous and not just, Sandra Harrison with fangs in her mouth, and everything. So that's kind of weird. But overall, I think I like that story better than this weird scientist at this asylum using it to stay alive. He's not even really a vampire. And yet the movie is called Blood of the Vampire. So, both titles could be called misleading, but at least the one, like I said, it has Dracula's blood in the pendant. There is no vampire. Even though it's called Blood of the Vampire, he's a scientist who was brought back through some weird heart transfusion thing that was done early in the film, and now he has to, use blood from these inmates to keep himself alive. It's weird. So I'm going to go with Blood of Dracula on this one. All right, so let's move on to direction and see if we can get our final winner of this. All right, Blood of Dracula is directed by Herbert L. Strock, while Blood of the Vampire is directed by Henry Cass. Now, Herbert L. Strock is the same director that directed I Was a Teenage Frankenstein and How to Make a Monster. And as I said in my comparison between I Was a Teenage Werewolf and How to Make a Monster, I don't think he is as good a director as our director on I Was a Teenage Werewolf. So some of his direction in here is kind of aimless and everything, and some of his acting that some of these people performing in it are kind of over the top and kind of just goofy. Gail Ganley comes to mind near the end when she comes in. And just take a look at this scene.
Mrs. Thorndyke, we're too late. I should have told you sooner.
Yeah, that wasn't very good acting there in that sequence. There's a lot of points like that in Blood of Dracula, unfortunately. Whereas Henry Cass, I don't know if I've ever seen anything that he's directed. I just might not have noted him as the director of it. But his direction seems more in line with a Hammer Films production, and it helps that he's got the lovely Barbara Shelley in this film to direct. One directing thing that I do object to, and it's very similar to the Frankenstein film, Frankenstein Must Be Destroyed, in which they added a unnecessary rape scene in there on Veronica Carlson. Well, Henry Cass, in this movie, he directs a scene in which a character tries to rape Barbara Shelley. Thankfully, it doesn't come down to fully this guy getting away with it and doing that like they did with Frankenstein, with poor Veronica Carlson. But still, it is not fun to watch Barbara Shelley being tossed on this bed and, about to be, raped like this. So that sequence I thought was tasteless, and I didn't like that. But overall, I think his direction, style, and quality is better than what Herbert L. Strock's is. So, yeah, I'm going to give this one to Blood of the Vampire. So that makes our final winner for tonight, Blood of the Vampire, with a score of 1, 2, 3. All right. Now, even though I don't really care for some of the story, as I said, in Blood of the Vampire, and that's the reason Blood of Dracula got 1 on this thing, but, the acting and direction in Blood of Dracula wasn't near as good as Blood of the Vampire. That doesn't mean I really like Blood of the Vampire that much, because, like I said, the story is just, it's well directed, but it's just not my style of a film, unfortunately. So, even though it does win this, it only wins it because of, the Hammer style that I really like, and pretty much the performance of Barbara Shelley in here. So, but what do you guys think of these two films? Do you agree with this comparison? Do you disagree? Let me know in those comments down below. And, as usual, if you enjoyed this video, do not forget to like, share, and subscribe. And don't forget to click that bell icon so you can be notified about future videos just like this one. And while you're by the subscribe button, click that join button and become a Dark Knight fan. As a Dark Knight Fan Plus member, you have access to an area on the channel right now where you can request a movie, TV series, or ranking video of your choosing. And when that video goes up, it will go up for all Plus members to view prior to it coming up for all other subscribers. So if you want to help us to get more reviews on this channel that you want to see, become a member. Well, that's the end of another Versus Night. If you missed last week's Versus Night, check out the link up in here. Or if you've missed any of the other Versus Nights, check out our playlist and see anything that you have missed.